Thanks, Sarah. That's great. So, welcome. So the sunshine seems to have left us. Maybe it's just, well, fingers crossed, it's just temporarily. So it's really nice to see that we're not taking you away from the sunshine this evening. I'm looking forward to our session tonight, and I thought it's just we had a webinar today, and I was just giving a bit of an update on what we've been doing. And a few of the most recent things that the Chamber's been doing is one of the key things that we launched just at the tail end of last week was our latest quarterly economic indicator survey. So that's us working as part of the Scottish Chamber network doing our regular quarterly survey. But it's more important, I think, than ever to learn and understand what's happening within businesses and what kind of issues that people are experiencing. So that's asking people to give us their take on Q2, what that's been like, what you think is coming up for your business, what revenue looks like, etc. And it's really important. I mean, that survey is paid attention to by national and local governments. It does get a lot of publicity in the media and whatnot, and we tend to do pretty well in terms of the numbers of people that respond to that. So if you haven't got a link for that, we'll put that out with the kind of the after event survey. I would appreciate if you would maybe take some time just to fill that in for us so that we can just make sure that as many Dundee and Angus Chamber voices are heard. We have also been talking to Scottish Chambers about virtual trade missions. So those of you that have kind of connected with us before on our international work will hopefully know that we were planning to go to Dubai in April, and we were also looking at some other geographic areas for us to build business-to-business connections and help you do more business overseas if that was an ambition for you. Obviously things paused, and the government and Scottish Chambers have agreed that chambers can now do a series of virtual missions, which in some ways you think about some of the cultures that you might want to do business with, and it might be that their preference might have in the past always just been about, let's do a face-to-face connection first. We have to see each other, read each other's body language, and kind of really get to grips with that before we feel very comfortable starting to have a real strong business relationship. But in the current climate, I think everybody's going to be adapting how they do business, how they find their customers, how they trade with other people. So taking part in a virtual mission means you don't have to take maybe a week out of your diary to go to Dubai to do business, or travel to China. You don't have to pay the costs of going out there and staying. So yeah, we're really excited about some of these trade missions, and we will be doing work with Dubai. We're looking at Netherlands, particularly from a circular economy perspective. And then we're also looking at Sweden and Denmark and the US. Last summer, we did a really successful event with one of our members, which was talking about Dundee and Houston and the connections there. So yeah, lots going on with that. And today, we did our very first virtual DACC 123 event. So we have been doing webinars all the way through lockdown, and we've continued to kind of evolve that programme. So, our Tuesday afternoon is always a member networking session, and it was a coffee and a virtual piece of cake, which you had to bring your own cake. But we had a great programme of DACC 123 events, which was all about going to a venue, a member space, hearing from that member about what they do, and then breaking off into small discussion groups. So we did that via Zoom today and went out into some breakouts and talked about, how's your marketing changed, and how, what does your business need for the future in terms of training and support, and what do you think the future environment is going to look like. So yeah, it was a really interesting event this afternoon. And Tuesday evenings are our Guide to series, so looking forward to hearing about cybersecurity. Wednesdays, our webinar programme focuses on people, so it's all about taking a break, taking some time out and thinking about how to support you, your people, the people that you're connected with, your family, your friends, all of that. And so we have tended to focus a lot on mental health and well-being, and tomorrow is kind of a continuation of that theme. And then on a Thursday, our webinars focus on supporting the business rather than the people. So this week, we're going to hear some entrepreneurial stories and how you can kind of think about what the future is going to be like for your business, and listen to some people that have been really making a lot of time to think about how their business is adapting in the current climate. So yeah, lots going on. We've also been looking at, like any organisation, how do you keep your marketing fresh? How do you keep connecting with your customers? And lots of people have been doing a lot in bringing the people in their business to the forefront. So particularly on our Instagram now, you'll be able to find all sorts of mad pictures of with the team and what we're doing. We have a team meeting on Teams every single morning, and we rotate who chairs that. So everybody within the team gets a chance to chair, because that means they get the chance to interact with all of their colleagues in a way that they wouldn't do if I was chairing and they were just taking their little slice of that meeting. But we also now theme those. So today's session, we had to dress up in 90s rave outfits, which was quite bizarre. And, we've done Alice in Wonderland themes, we've done stripes, we did we've done 80s, so we're kind of cycling through the decades. So yeah, have a wee look at that, and you can give us all sorts of feedback, good or bad, doesn't matter. So I think that's really all I want to say. I'm going to ask Mark to unmute himself. Once I can hear you, Mark, I'll get out of the way and mute myself, and then it'll be over to you.
Alison, can everyone hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen just now. Hopefully everyone can see that okay. Yeah. Interesting what Alison says about themed meetings. Yesterday, when I looked out from our kitchen is up one floor, and when I looked across to one of our neighbours, I seen that he was sitting with his laptop outside in his outside dining space with a scuba mask and a hula skirt on, topless. And I actually know the guy, and I actually seen him today as he kind of stopped and drove past to hand something into the house, and made comments on that. So quite interesting what you can actually see during this time, as well as seeing into everybody's houses at the moment. So yeah, really interesting. Anyway, thanks to the Chamber for inviting me to talk to you all this evening. I really appreciate being here. So this presentation's titled A Guide to Cybersecurity During COVID-19. So I'm going to cover quite a few things. It might get a little bit stat heavy in some areas. I make no apologies for that, because it's the world that we live in terms of IT and cyber, and that we do have to kind of show that information we can't show things visually and graphically quite often in what we do, so we have to use statistics. So who are M3 and why should you listen to us? I'll give you a quick introduction to our business. Now, I think a few of you on the call probably are aware of us. Many aren't. There's a few of us there in our Teams photo. It's not everybody. We are IT support and cybersecurity specialists. That's the two key areas of the business, and those areas of the business are very separate functions internally for us. We're almost 11 years in business. We broke through that 10-year barrier last year, and we've got a couple of months to our year end. We are based in Perth, but we do serve the UK market. We have clients as far down as Hastings and as far north as Dingwall, or if you prefer the East Coast, up in Keith, which is a fair bit north of Aberdeen, despite what I was told the first time I drove up there. Well, it's just the other side of Aberdeen, yeah, and a little bit further. We're now a team of 15, which includes myself and fellow directors, Mark Lamb, who's our technical director, and Mary Brodie, who is our finance director. The three of us formed the company in 2009. We have already started the international recruitment, which we hear a lot of these days, purely due to lack of local talent in IT and cyber, which is a problem not just for us, but for all other IT companies that I know. So we do have resources based in Turkey, Romania, and India, just so we can buy in that specialisms. Now, those roles that I'm talking about, we did advertise, and we did try to recruit those resources locally first, and we just was not able to find the talent pool. So we are very much an international business now. This financial year, despite obviously having a bit of a downturn in terms of installation work. We are still set to achieve our first year of doing over £1 million in turnover, which is, I know turnover is vanity, profit sanity and all that, but it's still a pretty big milestone for us. On the cyber security side of things, and focus on cyber essentials, we've helped over 70 businesses achieve cyber essentials or cyber essentials plus certification. That's over the last kind of 18 months to 2 years. And size of our client base, we currently work with over 180 business locations across the UK. Some local businesses that most people know, of course, McGill or the new McGill, who we work with them and their sister companies as part of the their umbrella company. Scone Palace, the Gannicky Trust we've worked with for 10 years, and more recently Accenture and Dundee and our riskier group on cybersecurity. Some of our credentials here on the screen: we are approved cyber essentials practitioners. We achieved ISO 9001 certification probably I think it was February, March last year, so just over a year. We're Cyber Essentials Plus certified ourselves and members and trusted partners with the Scottish Business Resilience Centre. We do like to try and play our part in developing the future workforce. As I've said, there is a problem with a shortage in digital skills in Scotland and the UK. They reckon by the end of next year about 100,000 workers short across the UK. So this was a local. I like this photograph actually because I think the lad in the blue there, I think had already started a YouTube channel. The three younger lads were wanting to know about how to be a YouTuber and things, and just obsessed. Every kid, my daughter as well. How could I want to become a YouTuber? And the little lad in the front there, I think, was just trying to stab someone with his free M3 Networks pen that he got from us. So that's a joke. But it's really interesting to kind of see the kids kind of so engaged. So it's important that we kind of do these things, you know, to kind of help develop our future employees. Maybe some of them are in that photograph. Some of our cybersecurity work has featured in the local press. This was just over a year ago in March. Some of the dark web research work that we did caught the attention of the Courier. I think there's a quote from Alison Henderson in the front page of that. And basically what we did was research into the chamber members. And we did this, that's an infographic we produced there. An important thing was we seen an average of 39 breached credentials, that's username and password combinations for each member of the chamber. And like I said, that was last year, so it's probably increased since then. That was done in the run-up to the Dundee Chamber Cybersecurity Breakfast, which we sponsored in March. I'm not sure what the exact numbers were, I can't remember, but it was definitely over 50 businesses there. We had speakers from Aberdeen, the Scottish Business Resilience Centre, and off the back of that event alone, 3 local businesses that attended chose to work with us to manage their cybersecurity. So that's my little plug for chamber events. I'm sure once we all start having face-to-face events again, all these things will start back up. I just wanted to kind of show that, you know, getting involved and taking an opportunity to sponsor chamber events is definitely a great thing for your business. More recently, you can tell we're working at home now. I don't have the nice scanned in kind of graphics. These were just taken on my phone. But a couple of weeks back, again, front page of the Courier, because we've been putting out weekly blacklisted domains. These are domains that have been identified as sending out COVID-19 related phishing and another online scams. So we had over 100,000 domains recognised when this data was passed to the Courier, and the information and the advice that they've put in there. It took them a few days to get it out, but it did get out there. And it was down to this information here. So we've now gone 8 weeks of putting up these domain blacklists. Now, it was 100,000, that was only a couple of weeks ago. It's now, as of yesterday's update, gone over 150,000. So what are these and what do you do with them? Well, this is basically text files of domains that our cyber techs basically trawl threat intelligence databases, the dark web, etc., and we collate this information every week, and we come up with these lists of domains that have been identified as sending out phishing and other online scams. And what you do with these is, well, you can't really do much with them, but your IT provider or your in-house IT department should be able to add these to your email filters and things to prevent and block emails being sent from these domains to any of your users. The domain URL at the bottom there on our website, we have a COVID-19 resources page. That's where this information is, along with all our videos and blogs and everything collated in one place. You don't need to remember that. If you just go to our website, there's a green button right at the top of the screen. Click that and it will take you to all this information. And that's provided just free for everybody. I think every presentation should have a really good quote in it, and this is mine, from Ginny Rometty, who's IBM CEO. It says, "We believe that data is the phenomenon of our time. It's the world's new natural resource. It's the new basis of competitive advantage, and is transforming every profession and industry. If all of this is true, even inevitable, then cybercrime, by definition, is the greatest threat to every profession, every industry, and every company in the world." What, even me? Well, yeah, let's just look at some statements here, because if you have computers in your business, if you rely on email, if you have an accounts payroll package, if you use a CRM system, if you have a sales quoting and ordering tool, maybe you're just using Excel for that, if you have a website for your business, and if you create any files or your photographs or whatever, and you store them either locally or in the cloud, and then you have people using all these systems, then yes, you are extremely likely to experience a cyber incident at some point if you're not doing anything about it at the moment. Okay, so let's look at cybersecurity during COVID-19 and maybe what's changed or also what hasn't changed. Well, people are obviously hungry for news and information about the pandemic. Cyber criminals are very, very quick to take advantage of people's anxiety, fear especially, and seize an opportunity to try and steal data and compromise systems. Now, that's not really any different to any other situation, because in the past, they've been quick to jump on, for example, a death of a famous celebrity, and they'll start to see fake news and things going around like that, trying to curiosity killed the cat, right? So trying to play on people's curiosity and nosiness to find out what's going on. But we did see the huge pivot to phishing, COVID-19 related phishing, which increased 667% from February to March. And UK businesses were seen as one of the most targeted countries globally. I don't have an answer to why that is, but during May, 6% of all email traffic is being classed as phishing, and so it's gone up. It's gone up hugely, and as a result, 40% of companies are reporting increased cyber attacks. Now, what do you mean by a cyber attack? It's not necessarily that businesses have been affected by a cyber attack, but for businesses that are maybe monitoring the network, they're maybe starting to see, say, failed login attempts on a server or on a router and things like that. So starting to see an increase in things. So it's not necessarily that something bad has happened, it's that they're starting to see people trying to do bad things. It's like someone tries your door handle at 3 a.m, right? They might try it, see the door's locked and walk away. Now, but you should class that as an attempted break-in, because if the door was open, they would have walked in. So it's an attempted attack, right? So what are the security worries facing businesses during COVID-19? Well, when asked what organizations are primarily concerned with people working remotely, most businesses said it was securing network access. So how to ensure employees can get access to resources in your company network and do that securely. Next, it was access to SaaS apps. Now, SaaS is software as a service, so basically cloud, right? So we're using Teams, Slack, anything else that you use online is a SaaS app. Personal devices has obviously become huge with device sprawl, but 41% of organizations are not taking any steps to expand secure access for the remote workforce. And half of the businesses say that that's because they don't have the proper equipment to do so. And as a consequence, 65% of businesses are now enabling personal devices to access systems and applications. And this becomes a huge problem from security in IT, as you can imagine, because IT departments and IT companies don't have sight of these devices. And when it comes to the most concerning threats for remote work, malware and unauthorized user access are the two key concerns. And the application types that people are most worried about, or businesses are most worried about, is file sharing, web applications, and video conferencing. And obviously, we all know about the Zoom bombing and all the security issues that have gone on with that. And 63% of businesses say that working remotely will impact their compliance with regulations, specifically people naming GDPR as being a big issue. So I'm pretty sure we'll start to see a lot more fines, a lot more action taken against businesses, because you got to remember GDPR is law, and laws haven't just gone away, because of this. So you still have to ensure you're complying with it, and it becomes a huge problem when you've maybe now got data scattered, all over the place. And really interestingly, actually, over half of employees believe they can get away with riskier behaviour when they're working from home. And when asked why that was, half of them say it's due to not working on the usual device. Now, that just expands on what we've seen, where businesses are saying that the biggest problem is that people are not, they don't have the right equipment, so they're allowing people to use personal devices. And then the employees say that, they'll take more risks because they're not using the usual device. So I think hardware is a problem. We've seen that as well. The price of hardware, the price of laptops shot up, and all the suppliers that we know just kept saying, well, it's the NHS. The NHS are setting up these temporary hospitals. The NHS were literally buying everything they could get their hands on, including refurbished equipment as well. So maybe there's been an issue with businesses getting their hands on equipment, or just making the easier choice to say, well, rather than us buying equipment, we might as well just let people use what they've got at home. 48% say that feel that they're not being watched by IT because they're not on premise. So as a reason for not following safe data practices. 47% saying that distractions, we've all got distractions at home that we don't have in the office. I've been on webinars where people's kids, people's dogs bark in the background. The Amazon delivery driver goes. I had to jump off a call just this morning. It was just an internal call with our team because I was expecting a pallet delivery, and the guy turned up and had to go and move a car out the drive so the guy could actually bring the delivery in, right? So all these things are happening. And then 39% of people say that they feel they're under pressure to get things done quickly at home because they might not be working a full 8-hour day. They might only be working 3 or 4 hours, or just in between helping kids with homework and all that kind of stuff. So by doing things quickly, inevitably we make mistakes. So I thought I'd show you some real examples here of the kind of attacks that we see. And this one is kind of really interesting because I'm pretty sure we've all seen this kind of thing, whether it's an official one or these kind of fake COVID-19 maps. So there's a lot of these things around. There's a lot of apps now as well, giving this information out. But basically, hackers are using fake maps to infect people with malware. So this particular one here that we've seen infects people with this malware called AZORult. Okay, so I'm just going to show you an example of the kind of thing that just by visiting this is a website, right? So just by visiting, and it's cut off at the top there, but it's corona-virus-map.com. Don't go to it, by the way, right? But just by visiting this site, you don't actually have to download or do anything. Just by visiting it, you can infect your machine with this malware, and then we'll show you what this can do. So this has been around for quite a while. This is quite an old malware. Was sold in Russian underground forums to collect information from infected computers, but then it's evolved. Just like they're saying coronavirus might evolve and new strains. That's what happens in malware as well. Once antiviruses and once cybersecurity systems kind of get wind and can protect against it, it just evolves, so it creates a new strain. And then, they're always one step ahead. But this here can basically get remote access to infected machines. And these are some of the things that this kind of thing can do. So steal data. So see what programs you've got installed, your username, computer name, operating system. That doesn't seem too bad. That's just generic information. Being able to steal account information used in like file transfer protocol clients or file manager software, that's a little bit more serious. Steal and stored email credentials from different email clients. Now that is pretty severe, because obviously if you're getting access to your business email or personal email systems is really bad. stealing usernames, passwords, cookies, and browsing history from your browser. So I'm pretty sure most people on this call will be allowing their web browser, whichever flavor you choose, to store that autocomplete information. So you go to a website, Google Chrome does it. I've not used a browser to store stuff for a few years since moving to a password manager, but a lot of people will be using that because it's convenient, right? But if you get infected with this, it can actually steal that information. If you have Bitcoin, if you're rich enough to be investing in Bitcoin, whatever, and you've got Bitcoin wallets, again, this can steal your Bitcoin wallet data. If anyone's still using Skype, your chat history, messages, and just other things like being able to download and execute and delete files and things like that. So, so normally what happens with malware, you get something on your machine and it just opens the door for things to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And you might not know that this stuff's going on, by the way. That's the big problem, right? You think you visited that website, you didn't think that you didn't know it was infected. And then there you go. Bogus official messages. So here's one here. Now, I use this example because it's actually a really well written, good message, although it's US based. It's written very clearly. It's actually got some really good information about, good hygiene and things. But if you look at the link that's been hovered over there, you can clearly see it's not going to anything that looks like an official government website. So watching out for emails that appear to come from like the World Health Organization. They've already come out and said, look, if you see anything that looks like it comes from us, make sure you double check it. So any governments or any what looks like a trustworthy source. Emails that contain links to see cases in your area. Again, playing on that curiosity. Oh, I want to see what's going on in my neighborhood, right? But the only thing that you're going to get exposed to is malware from clicking that link. And then phishing email examples. Now, this, we could be here all day, right, looking at examples, but here's just a few, we're not going to go into them all in detail, but you can see some of the examples here. Top left one, a voicemail. You've got a voicemail from someone and you've got 24 hours to pick it up. Word attachments, fake documents that look like an attachment, but it's just a download. Down in the bottom right there, you have to click to confirm your email account is going to be deactivated, and you have to click here to confirm to avoid affecting your email. Now, of course, if a user's working from home and they can't easily turn to a colleague for a second opinion, they might think that's genuine if they get fished into it. But if you look at the link that we've hovered over, if you can see that in the bottom right, the domain it's taking to you is onecatmeow.com. I mean, if you're not hovering over and checking on links, then you should be. And then in the bottom left there, the FedEx tracking, which has been around for a long time, but basically using COVID-19 as the reason. So, I'm trying to get this paperwork in the mail, but I can't because COVID-19 is slowing things down. I've posted it. Here's the tracking number, and I've attached you some soft copies. Now you can see those are deliberately made to be blurry. So you go, well, I can't read them. So immediately you go, well, I'll just click on it so I can see the files. And actually, you're not downloading anything other than infecting your machine. So what can you do to harden your business and become more resilient to attacks? Well, before I kind of get into giving you some kind of advice and things, I thought we talk quite a lot with clients about security culture, and it really has to come from the top of an organization, and here's some things to avoid. If you've said or you believe any of the things I'm about to say, then you need to kind of erase these things. Okay, so these are things that we hear regularly from businesses. I'm too small to be hacked, right? Hear this a lot. Why would anyone be interested in me? Well, cyber criminals want you to think you're not a target, right? But the reality is 43% of cyber crime is committed against SMEs. Despite what we see is in the press, is we only see the big attacks, right? We see the BAs and the Marriotts and the Ashley Madisons, and we see all those things. But the reality is that those just make the news because they're big stories, right? Like our press articles of the Courier, 100,000, right? I mean, if we only had 1,000 or 10,000 domains on our list, do you think the Courier would have been interested? But they liked 100,000, right? They like the big numbers, which is great advice if you want to get into the newspapers. Just come up with some really, really big numbers. My data isn't valuable to anyone. So what really frustrates me is businesses just don't value their data. It's really hard to put a value in your data. You can put a value in a building quite easily, but how do you value the data that you have? Well, the reality is it might not be worth anything to anyone else, but it certainly is worth a lot to you. And what criminals are going to do is they're going to hold your data to ransom, and they're going to make you pay to get access to your own data. And even worse, they make you pay for it twice now, because they'll hold you to ransom to get your data back, and they'll also force you to pay a second ransom for them not to release a copy of your data in the public domain, which then would obviously put you in breach of GDPR and inform the Information Commissioner's Office and things, so then you'll get fined again. So your data is really valuable, trust me. I don't believe it will ever happen to me. Well, of course, cyber criminals want you to feel like you're safe, and that's, the complacency, right? I can't afford to spend money on cybersecurity, which is really interesting because most people don't have a clue what it costs, to buy in cybersecurity services, and actually, people realise it's actually. If you can afford to outsource your IT support, you can definitely afford to outsource cybersecurity. But 38% of SMEs just are spending next to nothing. But the real question is can you afford not to? And the worst one is, well, my IT support company is already taking care of this, right? Now, we do IT support, and we've got clients that use us for IT support but don't have any cybersecurity services with them. We get that as well. They say, but you guys are taking care of this, right? And this is partly the problem, where because it's IT and people don't want to have to think about it, people just go, yeah, but those guys will be taking care of it, right? Unfortunately, after something bad happens, then you realize that there was no protection, and then you ask the questions going, well, why didn't you tell me you weren't doing this, right? So it's that conversation that people need to have with their IT provider. As I say, go and ask what cybersecurity service they're providing, and then be prepared to be shocked. It's like I said to people, you don't work for free, so why would you expect them to provide services that are not on an invoice? So if it's not an invoice, you're not getting it. So where do I even start with all this? I appreciate this is quite a heavy topic. There's quite a lot here. I'm going to simplify things as we kind of go on, so stick with me. I think number one, I think you need to accept that unless you take action, a cyber attack will happen, right? I think it was Robert Mueller, the former FBI director, who said there's two types of businesses: those that have had a cyber attack and those who haven't. So if you haven't had a cyber attack, then you're in the category that you will have. Start by creating that security culture within your business. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, but promote security as a good thing. Normally when you put security measures in without talking about it first, people's reaction are, oh, they're going to start monitoring us. They're going to start checking our email. They're going to start watching what we're doing, right? Because people don't communicate it to their staff the right way. But talk about it during team meetings, understand what people's kind of problems are, especially now with people working remotely. And before you can mitigate any risk, you have to assess risk. So cyber risk is no different to fire risk or flood risk or fraud risk or whatever risks that you have within your business is exactly the same. So assessing it and what potential impacts each of those can have to your business is important. So our approach, just to see how we kind of approach things, is we carry out a risk assessment. So NIST CSF. So what does that mean? So the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework. So NIST is a US government wing organization, whatever you want to call it, where they have a cybersecurity framework which is used by many people in countries and organizations as a framework for cybersecurity. Even the Financial Conduct Authority here in the UK use NIST as the basis for their cybersecurity assessments for FCA regulated businesses. So carry out a risk assessment so you can gain an understanding of your current security posture, so then you can make recommendations and understand what solutions you need. And even Cyber Essentials is actually based on the NIST framework too. So if you're not familiar with Cyber Essentials, I don't really have enough time to kind of cover it all tonight. You can get in touch with me afterwards if you want to discuss it. But so we always recommend that Cyber Essentials is a really good place to start because it provides that cyber hygiene. And government figures from the National Cybersecurity Centre, who administer the scheme, say that you can help prevent up to 80% of the most common cyber attacks. And that's the most common in the wild cyber attacks. Most businesses will achieve certification within 4 to 6 weeks, depending on who you would choose to work with to get you through that certification. But and for us, we don't work with any businesses that don't already have Cyber Essentials. If they don't have it, we work with them to get it, because the way I see it is Cyber Essentials is like the foundations of building a house, and you can't build the walls and the roof if you've not already got the foundations solid. So it's a really good place to get to, and it's priced really and controlled a bit by the government so that it's achievable by any business, right? So regardless of size, any business can get and can afford to achieve Cyber Essentials. Today, I've got 6 cybersecurity takeaways for home working, which will actually be able to help you make some changes right now to, if you're an employee or whether you're running a business, then this is all actionable advice. So number 1 is really to look at securing your home network and personal devices. Okay, so things like changing your home router credentials, both the admin login and the Wi-Fi passwords. Now, again, I'm not going to cover step by step how to do that, but if you're using something like BT or Virgin, there's plenty of guides on their websites on how to do that. You've probably got, the little pull-out bit off the back of your router, or just underneath your router, there's a sticker, and it will tell you what the admin and the 2 different passwords, right? The admin login are. Changing those is just good advice, unless you happen to be living in a big house in the country where no one else is within range of your Wi-Fi network, then it might not be so, an issue. But for most of us, if you look at your phone, you're going to see loads of other Wi-Fi networks of your neighbours round about you, okay? Now, use WPA PSK authentication method only. That sounds quite technical, but you tend to find that you're out of the box, your network will be using that already, but we're just mentioning it just in case you're using a device that isn't using that. It's the most secure, most common method of Wi-Fi authentication. And a lot of routers nowadays, you can turn on guest Wi-Fi. So especially people with kids, this is really important, because they bring their friends round. The first thing they do is go, what's the Wi-Fi code, right? So they give all their friends access to their Wi-Fi. Meanwhile, you're sitting in your spare bedroom, kitchen table, or your home office, or in my case, you're sitting in an office corner of your garage. And unknowns to you, you've got, a kid with an out-of-date Android. It's not been updated for 3 years, sitting on the network that you're sitting doing your business, running your business from. It's not a good idea. So turning on the guest Wi-Fi, what that will do is create a separate network for guests, and it'll keep those devices segregated from the rest of your network. And it's literally just a checkbox and a save the options within your router. Most can do it. BT routers can do it. So most can do it now. And whilst there, see if there's an update firmware for your router. That's a really important one as well. Make sure that the router's software is up to date. Usually you'll click a button, it will check, it will update itself. You don't really need to do much about it. And of course, keep everything up to date. That includes tablets, smartphones. I think I actually mentioned this twice in here, but updating is really important. Now, if you work for a company that provides you with a VPN so you can access your company network, make sure you only use that VPN for work purposes. One, you'll notice that using a VPN, your internet traffic is slightly slower because it has to route through your company and go to the web first. But secondly, and this is a bit of a performance tip as well as a security tip, is that if you have other colleagues using that VPN too, if you don't disconnect it and then you start sitting on Netflix, right, all that traffic's going through the company network, and you're going to slow down the performance for everybody else. Not only that, but if your company is monitoring internet traffic and all your traffic's still going out through the VPN, whatever you search for, right, is going to be possibly seen by your IT provider, IT department, which might be a little embarrassing, right? We'll leave that there. We've already mentioned phishing emails, but double check for phishing emails. Honestly, phishing is the biggest risk to people right now. I mean, over 90% of attacks begin with an email. That was a stat that I knew even before COVID. It's maybe even higher now, but it's at least 90%. And I know that 66% of attacks are down to human error. So when you add those two numbers together, phishing is huge. The biggest problem people have is in an office, people could just turn to a colleague and say, hey, Alison, can you just have a look at this email? I'm not quite sure if this is legit. And Alison would go, nah, it's a phishing attack, and you just delete it, right? But with people working from home, they don't have that second opinion. So, I mean, even worse, they might forward it to a colleague, and now you've got two potential people who might click on the link, right? You know, see how the problem can easily get, snowball. So things like watch for the sender's address, watch for ambiguous introductions. So if they don't use your name, if they say, dear sir, dear madam, hi, then that's a big red flag. Bad spelling, deliberately spelling wrong before anyone picks me up on that. But bad spelling is a dead giveaway, because a lot of these countries, these phishing emails are coming from countries where they don't speak English as their first language, right? But they're actually getting very good at it. And I think a lot of them are employing copywriters that do speak English to write the phishing emails for them. Right, go onto Fiverr.com, you can get anyone to do anything for 10 quid. Urgent calls to action. If you're being pushed into doing something like, oh, you must download this link's going to expire within 24 hours, right? Anything that forces you to take action, be wary of, especially if you don't know the person. And then embedded images pretending to be attachments. So make sure it is an actual attachment, and make sure it's from someone that you know. A shameless plug for our FishNet service, which we know we've been promoting recently. We set this up to help our own customers, but anyone, where you can, if you've got a phishing email and you're not sure, forward it to the address there, fishnet@m3networks.co.uk. One of our cyber techs will look at the email, we'll analyze it, we'll click the links in a sandbox, and we'll come back and tell you what would have happened had you clicked it. So if you're not sure, just forward it to us, and it's also really good for our threat intelligence. Allows us to kind of see what people are getting so that we can help, advise and take action. Passwords and authentication. You're not going to get away without talking about passwords. No personally identifiable information. That's where it says no PI. Aim for at least 16 characters. Now that sounds like quite a lot, but actually, if you use a password manager, it isn't. Don't share passwords between work and personal accounts, especially your email password. That's the most vital one. Or what I've said, or use like car.house.bike, so the 3 random word method. So 3 random words with a dot in between them. A lot of systems allow you to use the space bar now as a character, so you can put a space bar in. That massively improves the security of your password. And use two-factor authentication wherever possible, especially in Office 365. It is built in, you don't have to pay anything extra for it, but you do have to set it up and enable it and get all users to sign in with it. And make sure you do this on personal accounts as well. So things like Amazon and Facebook, you can turn these things on. And if you're not sure what two-factor authentication is, there's a screenshot there where something you have and something you know, right? So something you know is your username and password. Something you have is the PIN code. So I have an app on my phone, Google Authenticator, and I've got lots of these codes which expire every 60 seconds. If you do any online banking for business, you'll maybe have a little token that does these things where you click and you generate a new random code. That's a huge way to improve the security of online accounts. Mentioned already, but update all the time. Include smartphones as well. And if you live in a house with others, again, especially kids, make sure they're updating their devices too, because if you're updating your devices, but you're on a network with, old devices that aren't being updated or not supported anymore, then you're also at risk just by being on the same network as them, So yeah, make sure you do it. Don't put it off, okay? And remember that work devices are for work only. So if you're a business owner and you supply devices to your staff, make sure you have policies that say they can't use them for personal use. Now, that might seem harsh, but it's your device. And if anything goes wrong, you're the one that's going to pick up the pieces. If you're working for somebody, then just respect the device, and that a bit of web browsing or a bit of Amazon shopping might be okay, but don't give it to your kid to sit and play Minecraft on, okay? And just as well as when you're in the office, make sure you lock your devices. I do it just because it's just habit, but lock devices when you're away from the keyboard, right? So if you're on Windows, the Windows key and L. If you're on a Mac, you need an extra finger. So Control, Command, and Q. It's a little bit more complex on a Mac. I'm left-handed, so I can do it on a Mac quite easily. So quite quickly, because I know I'm kind of pushing for time, but my thoughts about kind of cyber after COVID-19. Well, I think obviously working from home, this is like, they keep saying this new normal term, 84% of businesses have said that they're highly likely to support working from home long after. So whether giving people the option, like I know Twitter have, Facebook, some of these big companies are leading the way by saying, hey, if you want to work from home, that's perfectly fine. Some businesses might, have a split on working from home and being in the office. I know for me, I definitely think I'll spend more time working from home. But businesses will have to extend their security to cover those remote workers. I know everyone got pushed into this knee-jerk situation, and everyone quite very quickly, because we've seen it very, very quickly, had to get people working remotely from home. So people just said, look, I need to get people working remotely from home. Of course, the consideration about security comes after that. But if you're going to continue working from home, then you have to extend that security coverage. Because no longer you're just looking after, it was nice. It was really nice for IT and security when everyone was just in the one network and you had one router and a firewall and, a wireless access point, and then everyone went home again and came back in at 9 o'clock the next morning. That was great. But now IT departments and providers are going to have to include the user's home networks and the personal devices as part of the attack surface. We do bring your own device policies for clients, and there's 4 policies just for a member of staff to use their own personal device for work use. 4 policies. So if you don't have any policies in place, then now's the time to think about getting these things in place. So what was already a difficult task for many SMEs is going to become, or has become very quickly, even tougher to manage without, working with anyone specialist in cyber, But it's clear that continuing as you were isn't an option. So I believe that the spend on dedicated cyber services has to increase, because for many, cybersecurity was a luxury and a nice to have that bigger companies could afford, but it's really, has become a business necessity now. So that's me done. I'm just going to add that if anyone has in-house IT, so if anyone works with any organizations that has an in-house IT department, then on the screen in the bottom left there, we do have 10 tips for secure remote working, which is a guidance for IT managers, which, as you can imagine, is a lot more and highly technical compared to what we've just covered just now. But if anyone's got an in-house IT department and they want their IT manager to get their hands on that, then get in touch with me somehow, and I can give you that as a PDF, and that would help them to help secure your network. But that's it, and I think we should have time for questions.
Thanks very much, Mark. That was really, really informative, and a lot of not scary information, but I think, stats there to make people, think about their IT and think about their security and think about home working, which is obviously really, really important. Like you say, people were thrown into having to work from home, and now that it's going to be a continuation for a lot of companies, thinking about home networks and all that sort of stuff is really, really, really important. Okay, Alison, I know that you've got a question, if you want to unmute.
Okay, thanks very much, Mark. My question is about the Cyber Essentials training. So if you've got a small team, how do you decide who or what role is best for doing that training?
For doing Cyber Essentials is a certification rather than training. Cyber Essentials is 5 technical controls which you put in place. So it covers like user access control, firewalls, password protection, malware protection. It covers basic cyber hygiene. So SAT, security awareness training, maybe what you're talking about there, in terms of, which is something I didn't really mention tonight, but security awareness training is another thing that businesses can do to address the human problem. So really what it involves is, well, it makes up, it can come in different flavors. Some businesses, which we've been asked to do before, which is to do on-premise training, right, where they get their team together and they do some security awareness training to make staff aware of some of the stuff I've talked about, right? How to check it seems really basic, but how to check for, you know, phishing emails, things like that. You can do it online. So one of the things that we do is we do phishing simulation as part of that security awareness training. So we basically phish test users. We'd actually do it for our own staff as well, just as a bit of fun. But phishing awareness training, where you baseline your users, you send out phishing simulation to your staff. Nothing bad happens when they click on the emails, but anyone who fails, anyone who clicks a link or, you know, tries to enter any information into, say, a fake login page, they automatically get enrolled into some online user training. And over time, the idea is that you increase their awareness, so they become like that, the human firewalls, right? So they become like at the front line where they can help protect the business. Does that kind of answer the question, or did I kind of pick that up wrong?
Yes and no, slightly no. I suppose from the Cyber Essentials perspective, I'm just thinking, you know, who's the person in the team then to own that if we don't have, you know, somebody that's kind of an IT specialist?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we work with businesses to get them Cyber Essentials certified. So they don't need to have anyone within their team. They just need to say, look, we want Cyber Essentials and we take care of the rest. Quite often, if it's one of our own clients, and it's really easy because we're already managing their IT. But we do the Cyber Essentials certification for a lot of businesses. So, for example, we'll take Bauhaus Care Group, for example. I mean, they have an in-house IT team. They outsource the cyber security, or some of their cyber security services and their Cyber Essentials certification to us. Accenture do the same thing. They don't use us for IT support, but outsource the cyber specialist skills that they need to us. So they don't really need anyone in-house. We'll in that situation, we'll normally work with their IT manager, or we'll work with if they're outsourcing their IT to support to someone else, we'll work with them too. So we can just provide that part there. I think I seen someone mentioned that you can get a grant to pay for Cyber Essentials. Well, yeah, you used to be able to, but the grant funding ran out a good few months ago. It's available still to charities, I believe, through SCVO. Some charities were still able to get their hands on it. But yeah, there was a pot of £500,000. A lot of the businesses that we work with used that funding. You got £1,000 funding. A lot of them used that to kind of get Cyber Essentials certification. Just to give you an idea, on average, it cost about between £1,000 and £1,500 to get Cyber Essentials certification for the kind of average business. And I say average, I mean, if you've got, say, between 10 to 50 computers in the network, that's typical. If your IT is more complicated, or if you're a multi-site business where you've got a head office and branches, then of course the costs can start to go up because there's more work involved and your network's more complicated. But it's really down to your current IT kind of setup. But as far as I'm aware, the funding ran out. It was being managed through Scottish Enterprise, and we had a couple of businesses that tried to get the funding right at the end. It was the end. It's kind of start of March-ish that it ran out, and we had some people knocked back at the time who said, "Look, no, there's no funding available anymore." And I haven't seen any information about the Scottish government putting more money into that. It's highly unlikely in this situation that they're going to spend money on cybersecurity when they've got all this other funding and stuff that they need to kind of put money into. But it was a great scheme when it was around, but yeah, sadly no longer available.
Right.
I see.
I was going to ask Andrew to come in and ask his question about a pen test service.
Yeah, penetration testing.
Interesting to know more about.
Penetration testing, essentially, it's ethical hacking. And I just wondered if Mark and the M3 guys offered it as one of their services.
Yeah, so it's really interesting that we get that a lot from people say, "Oh, do you do pen testing?" Because I think the old school way of IT security was businesses might have their network penetration tested. So from outside in, they'll try and see if there's any vulnerabilities in their network, right? And some businesses will go, "Oh yeah, we get our network pen tested quarterly or annually or 6 monthly or something like that." But unfortunately, that only looks at it at that moment in time. So, what about all the days in between? And it's you can't have your network penetration tested every day or on an ongoing basis, because one, it's too expensive, and two, it can be quite intrusive on your network, right? So it's not something that you would want to do, you would do regularly. Quarterly is probably the most often that people would do it, at a push monthly. But the biggest problems are not down to, the biggest problems that businesses have are can be more internal. So penetration testing doesn't look at anything internal on your network. It just looks at external vulnerabilities. And so what's the point of having a penetration test if someone comes in with a USB stick that no one's even looked at, that they brought in Tesco's and plugs it in, and you don't have an antivirus system that is set to pre-scan external devices? Or what we do for a lot of businesses is they just lock down USB ports. So there's one example of the penetration test doesn't actually help you much at all. Yeah, it's good to do, but the question is do we do it? Well, yeah, we can do it. We do it for people, but actually internal vulnerability scans, which is Cyber Essentials Plus actually covers, is probably more valuable because there's more risks probably internally than externally. But yeah, we can and we do it, but it's definitely not something that on its own is completely worthless. We wouldn't do it just on its own.
Thanks very much, Matt. Does that help, Andrew? Oh, he's gone. Gary, I see you've got a question as well, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. That was a really interesting presentation. So kind of quick question. Just a few days before the lockdown kicked in, we worked pretty hard to get 150 members of staff out the door with, throwing them laptops as they left. Now we've got about sort of 20 or 30 staff members who are using their own laptop devices at home. Now, over the next kind of 2 to 3 weeks, we're going through a process of replacing those with, our own laptops that have got encryption software and all the antivirus stuff on it. When we've been back around the staff team again, I've kind of picked up there's a few members of staff are working only with very sort of basic antivirus software, and it's worrying the hell out of me, if I'm being honest. And I'm just, it's some advice on the guys who are still using their own laptops, even if they've got their own antivirus, then this kind of handful who seem to be using sort of the very basic free antivirus. Is there things we can do to shore that up in the meantime so they don't become a bit of a weak link for us?
Yeah, so this is exactly one of the problems, right? Well, firstly, the biggest problem that you could get into as a business is that obviously any free antivirus that I'm aware of is not licensed for commercial use. So even if it's their own laptop, but they're doing work for the company on it, technically they're breaching the licensing of that free antivirus software anyway. Secondly, it's not being managed remotely. So managed. Well, we say antivirus, but we really call it endpoint security now. So having a managed, so we provide fully managed endpoint security, so we can see eyes on it. So if the problem is that you're relying on the users to take action, right? So if it pops up saying, "Oh, I found a virus," you're relying on the user to know what to do. Mm-hmm. What action should I take, right? So it's a complete blind spot for you. What else do you provide in the meantime? Well, I mean, do these users have a computer back in the office, or is this their only device?
Yeah, we're back in each of our kind of offices in Dundee and Perth. All their kit and caboodle sitting there that they normally use. It's just this kind of very emergency response that we're using these laptops.
So what we did back in when all the kind of lockdown started is that through our help desk, we actually can provide remote access directly to their computer back in the office. So we've got a lot of clients where the computers in the office are just sitting running, and through our support portal, the user can log in and get a remote desktop session back to the computer in the office. Now, in that situation, all they see at home is a screen refresh, right? So mm-hmm. the great thing that does is it means that all the programs that they had in the office, they've got access to. It means all the security is on the computer in the office, all the processing power is happening in the office. So if they create documents and files, they've got access to all that. Like I said, in that situation, if you use any bespoke software or whatever in your business, you've got a user at home with a laptop. Remember all the stats that we showed there. The biggest problems that we see is people not using familiar devices, because in the office they've got everything right. they've got all the printers attached, they've got all their network drives attached, they've got all the software that they would use. So just giving them a remote access window into a system that they're already familiar with is the best way to do it. I've seen a lot of businesses, business down in Edinburgh that we work with, that ran out and bought 35 laptops and said, oh, we need to give everyone a laptop so they can work from home. And they're like, well, do you? I mean, they've already got a computer in the office, and I'm pretty sure they've got a computer at home. Now, if the computer at home is just getting a remote access window to the computer in the office, then you don't really have to worry about the home security so much, because there's no data being transmitted. It's literally just a remote access session, right? It also means that if you do have any staff that are out in the sticks with really crappy broadband, then all they're seeing is a screen refresh. You don't have to rely on them having a good internet connection either. So that kind of solution is what we would recommend, because you don't have to then go and buy more hardware. They can use a device that they've got at home. You don't have to worry about the security of the home network, because they're just logging in remotely. The only security you have to worry about is that the remote login session, they're using a secure password and things. But because it's a system that we have control of, you can then control that. You can put in multi-factor authentication. You can take control of it. I think the most important thing is that whatever the user is using, you have eyes on and you have control and management of the device. Mm-hmm. So I would, and so basically I would avoid adding more devices to the equation, right? And if they've already got a device, just give them remote access to it. Now, I don't know what systems you have in place, whether your IT is internal, whether outsourced. I can only speak for what we do, but it was very easy for us in the first week of lockdown. Literally, we had about 400 tickets in that week that we closed, and they were all, we prioritized the remote working ones, because we just had everyone saying, I want to get working remotely, how do I do it? And people were going, well, do I need to go and buy loads of laptops? So like, well, no. If your staff already have a computer or laptop at home, which I'm pretty sure they do, just leave the computer on in the office. Now, we did have a lot of people who, because it was a remote window, and I'm pretty sure some of you have done this, if you're working on a remote window, the taskbar along the bottom is the remote taskbar, not the local one. So we had some people who went, at the end of the day, start, shut down, and they shut down the remote computer rather than the local one. We had one member of staff actually for a client in Perth who did this, I think, every day that week. Fortunately, she lived 150 yards walk from the office, so she just walked along, went in and turned her computer back on. But if you live 50 miles away, it might be a problem. But hey, you only do that once or twice, and then you learn, right? So that's really the best solution that we've been able to provide people because of that, and not having to add on all that capex cost of going out and buying loads of laptops, because like I said, the price of laptops went through the roof. Yeah. When we seen laptops that we were buying at the start of the year were going for around about 250 to 300 pounds more for the same machine. So if you had to buy 5 or 10 new laptops, look how much extra that's going to cost you in a time when you really don't want to be spending extra money, So, yeah, there's ways and means it can be done.
No, thanks for that, Mark. That's really helpful.
Thanks.
Brilliant. That's really interesting. I'm conscious of time, though. So, Mark, we've got at least one person. Linda is after kind of speaking to you offline later in the week.
Absolutely.
So we'll make sure to kind of connect you. As I said earlier, this session is recorded and goes up on our YouTube channel. Sarah's really good at getting that up and getting that kind of access there fast. So if anybody missed anything in the slides, you always come back and kind of tab through what Mark showed, particularly those last kind of tips about how to do things and kind of think about it during. I mean, some of those stats were quite scary, weren't they? So. Anything that we can do through the network to kind of help you guys be a bit more protected, or at least think about it and have the right processes in place is fantastic. So, sorry, carry on, Mark.
Just to say, obviously, Linda said that she wants to speak to me directly. I mean, if you want, you can get in touch with me. I'm happy to speak to anyone if anyone's got any kind of queries and things. Through our website as well, you can actually get access to my diary and book a 30-minute. I give a free 30-minute consult to anybody if you've got any questions. No obligation. If you want to just have a chat, or if there's anything you're not sure about, then just get in touch.
Okay. and no need to wear a scuba mask or a hula skirt.
No, that's optional.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. A big thank you to you all for attending, and Sarah for getting us all so well organised, and to Mark for a brilliant presentation. So thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll catch up with you on another webinar. Thanks, folks. Thank you.
Right.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.